Here we go. Tanking in the NBA, is it a problem? Well, I mean, we know the answer is yes, but how much of a problem is it? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. We've got some wild stuff going on. Now the Pelicans shutting down Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum. Just as something really interesting was about to happen in the standings, I don't think it's a coincidence. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Everybody make sure you do subscribe to the channel right here. Donnie, this is crazy. Tanking, it's a thing. It's real, and now we're seeing it maybe hit new levels this season.
Oh, yeah. It's ridiculous the way that it seems like teams are finding reasons and ways to sit their players. And the NBA over the last couple of years has really tried to stop this from going on, doing things like, instating the rules, for players needing to play so many games, etc., star players specifically. But still, teams are finding ways to do it and get it done. And some of them are getting fined. And some of them have this loophole where they could just put the player indefinitely on the injury sheet. So if they need to sit him, they can just do it.
Yeah, so this is, the player participation policy is something, and that's something that's trying to keep stars playing and keep them from missing games and all of that. The Utah Jazz got fined in part because of this, because of Lauri Markkanen missing games, and they have been a very heavy tanker this season. But look at this,
and
is
the
from
lottery too as well. We didn't talk about that.
Exactly. And that's a big part of this. There's a strong draft class this year, so tanking has hit new levels. Check this out. Jeff Stotts, who does a great job with all the injury reports and all that, said following last night's games, the total games lost due to injury or illness in the NBA surpassed the 6,000 mark for the second time since the 2005-2006 season. The only other time was in 2021-2022 during the COVID-19 season of the NBA. So that tells you just how bad this season has been in terms of games missed. Now, Donnie, I don't think that's all tanking. I mean, there's been some bad luck with injuries. You look what's happened with Joel Embiid. You look what happened with the Orlando Magic, lost Paulo Banchero, lost Franz Wagner for large chunks of the season. There have been a lot of injuries this year. That's certainly a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the way that things are trending anyway, is just that the way that the game is played now, it lends itself to more fatigue and thus more injuries on guys. It's interesting because it's not as quote unquote physical of a game. That's fair. But the players move and travel so much more and JJ said it himself, that he wouldn't be able to play in this current iteration of the NBA not too long ago because of the way that players have to move. And so I think that, a lot of it is just injuries. I think players kind of get worn down at an unprecedented rate. And I think we're seeing that here. However, I do think a good number of this is teams finding ways to load manage or tank, either or, right? They've got incentives either way. If you're a team that's got some star players, you want to try to get them rest when you can. Most of the time, that's going to be in a non-nationally televised game. And if you're a team that's towards the bottom of the standings, even though they flatten the lottery odds to try to deter this, you still want to get down there, right? So
yeah, you absolutely do. And the Utah Jazz have gone to extremes to get there. They've been resting players like crazy, and they now have the worst record in the NBA currently. You've got now, if you take a look at the Pelicans, they're 2 games back of the 76ers. And the 76ers, remember, they only keep their pick if it falls in the top 6. So the 76ers would badly like to fall below the Pelicans. The Pelicans accidentally started winning some games, and they went, uh-oh. So they've won a game. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They say, uh-oh, Philly is 1-9 in their last 10. We're going to pass them. So, lo and behold, Zion's back is still bugging him. CJ McCollum, he's going to be done for the year. Suddenly, 2 key starters, Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum, are out for the season. I don't buy that these guys are probably a little banged up or whatever, but I'd have to imagine if they were in a playoff race, they'd be playing. I would have to imagine the fact that the Pelicans were creeping up on the 76ers, which would change their lottery odds, probably mattered here. And suddenly these guys get shut down. My question is that bad for the NBA to see teams doing stuff like this?
Yeah, I do think that it is. Absolutely. And we're at a point of the season where they're like, okay, well, we can you got an ankle sprain. Yeah, you'd be back in a week, but why not take 2? Whatever. Sure. It's fine, right?
And Brandon Ingram, the longest sprained ankle ever, right?
Exactly. Yeah, is he still out?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, the thing with that is I don't want to make it sound like that's a new thing either. Teams have always found a way to do that as well, especially in years with good lottery draft and all that stuff. So I don't know that that's new, but I don't think it's good either. Excuse me, either.
Yeah, I mean, everybody looking at Cooper Flag at the top of this draft, and we look at the draft odds. Yes, the NBA, they have flattened the odds for the top 3 teams. So if you are the worst record, if you're the third worst, right, you still have the same odds at a top 3. The difference, though, is now what teams are doing is they're looking at it and they're saying, well, yes, we could have the third worst record and we could have the same chance of getting number 1 overall as the first worst record. So in theory, that should ease some of the tanking. But teams are saying, but what if teams jump up? If I have the worst record, what I'm doing by getting the worst record is I'm raising my floor. Mm-hmm. I know at worst, I might fall to 5th. And it's happened. We saw it happen to Detroit. That would be the worst case scenario. Whereas if I'm the 3, I could fall all the way to 8, right? I could fall farther. So teams are trying to limit their ability to fall too far by dropping lower and lower in the standings, especially this year when there's Cooper Flag at the top. There's a bunch of really intriguing prospects. And so we're seeing teams get overly aggressive with tanking, again, to the point where the Utah Jazz have been levied a fine for this. Now Zion Williamson being pulled. Now CJ McCollum being pulled. And the problem with this is fans are buying tickets to these games, right? Yeah. Well in advance. And there's always a risk inherent with this when you buy tickets to a game. You know, it's possible that a player can get hurt right before you're going to go to that game. And but now you've got teams who are overtly sitting players, doing stuff to try to make sure they lose games. And you got to feel for fans, if they have the one shot to go see that player and that's their favorite player, and then that guy's sitting out, that's a tough situation.
Yeah, that's the one thing that kind of gets lost in all of this. We don't talk about that as much, is, the fact that you as a paying customer are trying to go see these players and you don't get all the opportunities that, you would like to have. And you save money to take your family down there. And sometimes these guys just aren't playing. The load management piece of it, I am much less empathetic to that piece of it, because I can understand it from the team perspective, but like I said, the fans are there. Like, you've got to at least come out there and try to play if you can. I don't want to see guys just sitting because they're 95 instead of 100. Like, I think it's fair to go out there and give the fans what they came for. But at the same time, like, if the guy is legitimately injured or is at risk of injury, then that absolutely makes sense. But I think so many teams just toe the line with a lot of their guys. And I think Philadelphia is a weird case study for today's season, because they wound up figuring out pretty early on that they probably should just let their guys get surgeries, but kind of kept on letting them come back, leave, come back, leave, and wound up ultimately having to reach the same conclusion. And organizationally, they may be better off for it because of the lottery stuff. But at the same time, I can't help but think it would have just been better to start that way anyway, because you're not winning more than 23 games anyway. So I don't know what you really accomplished this year.
Sure. Yeah. But there was still some hope in Philly. Like, hey, if we get everybody back, then maybe, because they were legitimate.
I'm going with hindsight, to be fair.
Sure. Oh, sure. But when I look at this though, here's what's funny though, Donnie, is like right now, Raptors fans are saying, are up in arms. Well, short arms, T-Rex.
Won 4 in a row.
Yeah. They've won 4 in a row. And Raptors fans are saying, what are we doing? You idiots. Why are you winning games? We need you losing games. Right. And you get it, because if you're a fan of that team and you didn't buy tickets to the game and you're not wanting to go see your guy, you're saying, I want a shot at a future. I want a shot at Cooper Flag. I want to have better opportunities to get the next star. And now this team that's probably going to see some significant changes over the summer is accidentally winning games and screwing everything up. So it's funny that we don't want teams to tank by sitting guys out, but we also don't want, some segments of the fan base anyway, don't want their teams to win too many games by playing guys either. It's like a fine line. You need to play everybody, put on a show, and lose every game by 1 point, and then everybody will be happy. You're losing enough games. You're still entertaining the fans that are there, and that seems to be the only way to thread the needle, which is obviously extremely difficult.
Right. So is Toronto gonna sit, quote unquote, sit quickly and Barnes?
I don't think it matters. I think they've already won too many games. I don't think it matters.
You think so? Look
at them.
They're at 28. Yeah.
Well, 3 games up in the win column of Brooklyn. Brooklyn's not going to win 3 games the rest of the season, I don't think.
They're on a 2-game
Although they've
streak.
won their last 2, so I guess you never know. But still, like that's if you're the Raptors. So it's funny. We're very
Philadelphia
specific,
lost
and we
8
do
in a
the same
row.
thing with winning, right? We do the
Yeah.
same thing with winning. KD joins the Warriors. Well, he won a championship, but he joined a super team. That doesn't really count. Like it only you have to win, but you need to win as the guy, and you need to experience some trials and tribulations in order to get there. Otherwise, it doesn't count as much if you're on a team that wins with a loaded roster, right? We do the same thing with winning. We want guys and we hold it against guys if they don't win, but they have to win a certain way to get credit for that too.
Absolutely agree. And like I said, looking at the number 1 overall stuff, it's pretty interesting that did that flattening just make more teams tank? Did it have the opposite effect?
I think it's this year. I think
Maybe.
it's because there's Cooper Flag in this draft, and nobody wants to miss out on the Cooper Flags, the Wembys, or whatever the world.
Is crazy though in this draft. Yeah. I think it's really good. Like all these teams, you get down there, it's going to be really good, even if you don't land one. But especially, you don't want to miss out on Cooper, sure. But
teams are always going to find some way to game the system. So I guess the question becomes, and I'll ask this to our audience too, and put it in the comment section: how do you fix this? I've had people say you need to go to like a relegation system, like we see with say European soccer. NBA owners will never go for that. They'll never go for not having the for sure revenue that comes with being in the NBA. So what do you do to address? I mean, the league already changed the lottery odds. How do you address tanking? Should we go back to a conceptual level and say, maybe we shouldn't reward teams for losing by giving them a high draft pick? Although that would be a massive overhaul of the entire draft system.
Yeah, I don't know if we need something like that, but we may have to if this continues, because I don't know if that really is helping the way it is now. It could be just this draft, but I don't know if it's really helping. We need to look at the records from last year and compare in a draft that wasn't all that, hyped. So,
well, and I don't particularly blame the teams. Like the teams are playing the game that's in front of them within the rules that exist. Right. That's the game that teams are playing.
Okay. But Philly is a polar bear in Arkansas. Like, what are they doing down there?
Well, true. But they've also been
is that the saying?
Injured.
Is that the saying? Chat, let me know. Is that the saying, a polar bear in Arkansas?
It sounded, you said it so convincingly. I'm like,
I don't know. There's a meme. It's got to be the saying, right?
It's got to be.
Okay, but like seriously though,
so
and I don't mean to hate them, by the way. It's just they came in with title aspirations, and they are going hard at the tank right now. 1-9 in their last 10, like all that. They're going hard. I don't even blame them for it, but they just stand out to me.
This is last year. We had 15 wins last year. And yes, the 76ers should not be in this mix. They are because of injuries and everything else. So we're going to surpass last season's win total. We already have, right? We had a couple of teams we had a team with 14 and a team with 15 wins last season. Now we've got a team with 16 and it was 2 teams with 16. So they've already surpassed those. But you can't help but get the sense that these teams are really competing with each other, doing what they can to drop games. And now the Pelicans, I think their decision here to bench Zion and CJ, I don't think they believe they're really going to catch the Hornets. I think if they could, they'd be great. But I think this is about not allowing themselves to accidentally pass Philly. And seeing that it's anti-competitive. And that's the challenge with the NBA. And do you want to buy tickets to a game when you know your team is not trying to win that game? And again, players don't really tank, organizations do, but still, even organizationally, do you want to be in that situation? That's the tough thing for the NBA right now, because their system rewards it.
Yeah, Zion a couple of weeks ago said he would be playing if they let him. Like he literally said it. They tell him not to play. Like they are literally going to their guys like, I know you could come back, but let's take all the time you need. Don't worry about it. All that stuff. And then I'll never forget going back to the beginning of the season with Pirtle in the beginning. He's like, yeah, we're just trying to tank this year. Like,
right. He's very, he's very open and honest about it. All right, let's talk about Zion specifically though, because this might change some of the things for him. This was Stephen A. Smith earlier today, who now wants to put Zion maybe into the bust category. Let's see what he has to say here.
I feel very, very bad for the Pelicans in the city of New Orleans. Because Zion Williamson is a star caliber talent. When he is on the court and healthy, he's a monster. The problem is he's rarely available. And as great as he is, the word bust comes to mind, not because of his talent. I'm only talking his availability. If you're not available, it doesn't matter how great you are. And he's almost never available. And that is the situation. And so if you traded him right now, for example, do you realize you can't ask for the farm for Zion? Well, you can ask, but you ain't going to get it because he hasn't been available. And nobody is going to give that up, which leaves the Pelicans in a position, although they altered things contractually to their favor in some respects, you can't expect but so much for him because his availability is what's going to come into question.
Yeah.
So all of this, is he right? Like, does this push? And I think this is as much about, and I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly what Zion's medical situation is, but I would have to imagine that what we're looking at here in the standings probably is a factor in the Pelicans' decision to shut down Zion Williamson. And yet now he's getting discussed in the bust category. May not be his fault. Do you agree, though, that he should be in that category despite him being so good when he's on the court?
I mean, I think based on his criteria, then I guess that's fair. If I'm being honest, I guess that's fair based on his criteria of saying, doesn't matter how good you are, but if you're never out there, then okay. They had that ticker there where Zion has played 30 games or less in in 3 of the seasons or 4 of the seasons of his career, which is crazy.
Yeah.
He missed an entire season to injury, and then you see his rookie year, which was a shortened season, but still, he 22, 23, and then this year 30 or less all these years. And he puts up all-star numbers. He's been an all-star a couple of times. He's a great player. He's one of the hardest players to stop. When he gets to the rim, he is doing what he wants to do. He's either scoring or he's getting to the free throw line. He is absolutely ridiculous. If he's healthy, I'd love to have him on my team personally.
Sure.
But Zion may be the most injury-prone player in the NBA, just in general, or the least available player in the NBA. I mean, there's a couple other names you could put in that ring, like one Joel Embiid, of course. But, Zion has only played above 60 games twice, and that was at 61 games in his sophomore year. I mean, under that criteria, sure, but I struggle to say that because I know how good he is. Like,
that's the problem.
I don't know that I've ever called a player a bust that's legitimately good. Right?
Like he's 26, 7, and 4.5.
That's hard.
But do you look at Greg Oden as a bust?
I mean,
because he was legitimately good. He got shut down by injuries.
Well, all these guys have pedigree to be taken highly before they get labeled a bust, right?
Sure. And Odin only appeared in 3 NBA seasons. Like, Zion has played more than Odin ever did, but still,
like, it's hard. Oh my God, you're right. I pulled up Odin's list, and he didn't play his first year, played the next 2 years, missed 3 straight years, and then came back for 1 year from Miami.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, look at that. 20. I remember that season and the 2009-2010 season. You're like, okay, here we go. 2.3 blocks per game, 11 points. This dude, here we go. This is the number 1 pick. And oh no, wait, he's done. 21 games, and then 3 seasons he's out. And then he tries to come back for a little bit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. I mean, so
that's ridiculous.
Like, there has to be a level to it, because I do think Greg Oden is in the bust category. But is Zion there? Has he played enough to avoid it? Has he not played enough to where he's in that category? I think it's a fair question.
What are some other busts? Like, Bennett obviously comes to mind, unfortunately.
But he couldn't play.
He wasn't great.
Kwame Brown, he was not good enough, right?
Is Ben a bust?
Ben Simmons?
Is he a bust?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't think he is because of how good he was, but something happened along the way that just absolutely torpedoed him. The injuries, the back injury, mental stuff, probably. Like, either way, he's still young too. Like, he's just a shell of himself.
I think based on what we expected him to be, he's got to be. I mean, it was this dude's the next LeBron, right? That's what it was when he came into the NBA, and it did not go that way at all. He had a couple of seasons where he was really good, but could Zion Williamson be heading in the same direction? And so there's another side to this. Number one, shutting him down now, does that create all this bust talk around Zion Williamson? Yes, but at the same time, if you're the Pelicans, you just say, well, we're not going anywhere this season. Bubble wrap this dude for the final 7 games and make sure that he's ready to go opening day next season.
Yeah, they're making the right decision. They don't really have much of a choice unless they were assuming that he's actually able to play, which Pelicans fans, I haven't seen why he's not playing. Just context there. I didn't see him get hurt or something.
It's like back stuff. He hit his back, but
yeah, okay.
He hit a bruise.
Assuming that he actually just can't play, they don't really have any other choice but to do this. They have incentive to do this in terms of all the other stuff we talked about earlier, and this is the right thing for them to do. But unless they're trying to trade him, then I don't see them going any other alternative path. But he is the ultimate enigma. Like, I don't really know how to gauge him. Like, I know he can still play. I'm not worried about that. But for how much longer? He's gotten healthy in terms of like physically. He's lost a lot of weight. He has really toned down, and that's been the big knock on him. The Pelicans protected themselves from him in the contract they gave him, so he obviously has a reason to do that stuff. And I'd imagine that finally he'll put it together. And if you're taking bets, the seasons he's played the most games have come after seasons where he's played basically the fewest. So next year should be an up season for him. He should play a lot of the season if you're keeping that same trend for Zion. I don't know. I don't think he's a bust, because I don't know if a bust averages 25 points per game. This guy averages 25 points per game in 29 minutes. Like,
he's fantastic.
Like that.
He's fantastic. But when you're getting shut down because your team's trying to tank and because you've had such an injury history, like, how many fans bought tickets to Pelicans games saying, I really want to go see Zion?
Yeah,
and he's been great.
But like, they know he's not playing. They're not going to go see Zion.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there needs to be a warning that when you buy tickets to a Pelicans game that pops up that says like, hey, this is the second night of a back-to-back. You know Zion's probably not going to play, right? like a disclaimer, like Surgeon General's warning. You know, if you're
Zion
going to see Zion.
Right. So like that's the interesting thing about him. What I'll say is I'll reserve this for later. Maybe this is something we check back on in 3-4 years just to see if he ever got right, because this could just be the early portion of his career. I don't think it was this bad or anything like this bad, and I'm not trying to say he'll be the same caliber of player, but we've seen other players. Curry comes to mind with his injuries. And that really held him out with the ankle and stuff. It's not exactly the same thing, but I'm hopeful for Zion as somebody that is an all-star. He's managed to be an all-star. Dude, he managed to be an all-star in a season he played 29 games.
In the West.
Right? In a season he played 29 games. Holy shit, that's crazy.
That is.
That's crazy.
That's how good he is.
Like,
that's how good he is.
Like, that's nuts, right? So like I don't know. I'm not there yet. But this is the same thing we talked about before. Like, I don't know if they should trade him because he's just such an enigma, because like this guy can give you 27 points per game effortlessly.
Exactly.
He's playing 29 minutes. He's never even hit 34 or 5 minutes. I don't know if he ever will unless he really gets healthy. Like, could you imagine him if he's healthy playing in the playoffs 38, 39 minutes? I mean, my God. Like,
the Pelicans would be great.
So maybe if they get a high lottery pick this year, maybe come off CJ, they retool a little bit around the periphery. They have their same guys, you know, their forwards that they have. They can come back and be strong next year. So yeah, we'll see.
They certainly can. But does Zion belong in the bust category? I'm going to say no. Not right now. I know the availability thing and all that, but everybody let us know in the comment section. Do you think Zion Williamson should be considered a bust at this point? I'm not going to hold it against him that the Pels are shutting him down right now. I think this is a tanking move from the Pels, and that swings us back to our beginning of the conversation here. Do you think tanking is a problem, and what is the solution to this problem? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to go check out our latest video too on John Morant and the decision the Grizzlies made and why they might wind up regretting it. Go check that out right now.